What's going on, trainers? DrumVillain here, bringing you some more Pokemon Go PvP content, and today we're talking about the Evolution Cup, which has just come in alongside the Great League, Ultra League and Master League in Go Battle League for this week, so lots to choose from. And the Evolution Cup is a limited meta that takes place in the Great League, so under 1500 CP, and you can only use Pokemon that have already evolved once and can still evolve again. So middle stage evolutions, things like your Charmeleon, your Ivysaur, picks like Zweilous and Vigoroth as well that are very strong in this meta in particular. So if you enjoy Great League, but maybe you're a bit sick of the current meta because it is pretty stale in the Great League at the minute with just the same Pokemon like Noctowl and Medicham dominating everything, this might be an interesting cup for you to take part in. It's not the first time this cup's been in, it was in about 6 months ago, and I did do a video back then as well, which I'll put a link to in the description and up in the top corner right here that you can check out, which is specifically a team designed to counter Vigoroth all the way through, and that's because Vigoroth is straight up the strongest Pokemon in this meta overall. No question about it. This team is also kind of built semi around Vigoroth because honestly, if you're not using it, or even if you are using it, you still have to prepare to deal with it because it's going to be on most people's teams. It is that strong and you've got to be able to have methods of handling it. So this team consists of pretty strong Pokemon in the meta overall, but is built around either catching Vigoroth on the lead or baiting it out with the safe swap. So on the lead, we're bringing Golbat, Shadow Golbat to be specific, because Golbat double resists the counter damage from Vigoroth, which is one of the biggest threats from it. You can take a body slam very, very comfortably. The recently buffed wing attack means you're getting more energy, you're still doing really good damage, and then you've got the Poison Fang to add up the defense debuffs, you've got a Shadow Ball for great coverage across the meta, and then in the back we've got two Pokemon that are technically weak to Vigoroth and will probably pull one out of the back because Vigoroth will probably be the strongest answer to them on your opponent's team, but that will clear the way for the other strong meta pick in the back to sweep the end game. So the first Pokemon in the back that you're going to be using most often as you say swap, I think, is going to be Sealeo, because Sealeo's got fantastic bulk in the Great League. It's a relatively expensive build because it's got to be close to level 40, I believe, for the Great League if you've got decent PvP IVs on one. But it's got Powder Stow and Body Slam, which is an incredibly spammy combination. You've got Aurora Beam as some extra ice damage oomph if you need it. It's not the best move, Aurora Beam, but still it's nice to have a move to actually hit some of the flyers for super effective damage, as well as being able to hit the ghosts for neutral damage if you end up locked in against something like a Dusclops or Haunter or something like that. You don't want to be just spamming double resisted body slams at that for sure. And because of its ice typing, you're probably going to pull out a Vigoroth when you swap into Sealeo. And against a Vigoroth, you're going to want to throw an Aurora Beam and then a Body Slam. One of those, a combination of those two moves, because those two moves combined are enough to knock out a Vigoroth. Two Body Slams are not enough to knock out a Vigoroth. One of the moves has to be Aurora Beam for that extra little bit of damage, and depending on how fast your opponent actually swaps into Vigoroth to counter your Sealeo, there's a good chance you'll get to both Aurora Beam and then a Body Slam, which means you can force shield advantage as well. But if not, and you just get an Aurora Beam through, that's completely fine. You let the Sealeo go down, you don't commit shields in that matchup, and then you let Golbat get ahead on energy, even if it gets a little bit lower on health, because then you've got energy to spam into whatever follows it in, and then your back Pokemon is going to be ideally set up to sweep the end game, assuming they don't have another counter hiding back there. And the last Pokemon that's going to be hiding back there on your team is going to be Zweilous. Now, you can use any dragon in that position if you want, like Dragonair or even Hakamo if you have access to it, but Zweilous has some nice coverage against the ghost types because of the dark typing resisting Shadow Punch, Poltergeist, Shadow Ball from things like Golbat, Haunter, and Dusclops. So it's very, very nice Pokemon to have in the back, and it's very powerful if you can clear a Vigoroth out of the way, because one of the best answers to Zweilous in this meta is Vigoroth, and other than that, Zweilous does very, very well against almost everything else. Now, if you're worried about not successfully baiting out a Vigoroth, or perhaps you just want a bit of different coverage that can handle Vigoroth, because you're going to find other positive matchups for your Golbat lead that aren't fighters like Machoke and Vigoroth, and you're going to be tempted still to swap out to make sure you pull a Vigoroth out because your backline's so weak to it. So if you want a bit more versatility in that sense, you can run like Dragonair. Hakamo would do just fine in the same slot, a bit different coverage, and maybe a little bit more susceptible to some other picks in the meta, especially a little bit more susceptible to the ghosts, but not that much. Dusclops is really your biggest concern if you're not running Zweilous in the back, but honestly, Dragonair and Hakamo can still hang out with that reasonably well. So this team plays a lot like your basic ABB lines, where you're specifically trying to pull out the fighting type in the back, because there is also Machoke, present in the Evolution Cup, and it is also going to do very well against Sealeo and Zweilous, but it's not as common because it's not as versatile as Vigoroth. It's only got fighting moves, so anything like Golbat or the Ghost or anything completely wall Machoke, whereas Vigoroth still has some options against those. And I have played a double fighting line with this team where I had Vigoroth and Machoke in the back, and we did win because we had shield advantage with Zweilous to Dragon Breath our way through the Machoke, so very, very nice in that aspect. So don't fear, if you do run into a double fighting line, it's not strictly an instant loss. Sealeo and Zweilous are still very, very strong, even against Vigoroth and Machoke, and put a lot of work in. They're not walled by them in any capacity. So as long as you've got maybe like a shield to use in that situation, you're still going to be able to do pretty well for yourself. In fact, this is the matchup right here. I'm here talking about potentially fighting a double fighting line, and this is the match here. So we've got the Vigoroth that we've managed to pull out with our Sealeo, soften it up a little bit. We've now got Golbat getting ahead on energy. We're just going to throw Poison Fang to finish it off because we had thrown a Body Slam and not Aurora Beam against the Vigoroth first, so it had a little bit more health. The Dusclops is going to come in, going to go straight for the Shadow Ball. It is going to go through and do absolutely huge damage. Then we're going to bring in Zweilous, and we're in a 2-shield scenario. There's the Machoke. So we had Dusclops on lead, Vigoroth in the back, Machoke in the back. Very, very bad matchup for this team in general, right? And you would assume that that's going to be a loss for us. But look at those Dragon Breaths absolutely shredding through this Machoke. And Machoke has access to Cross Chop, Karate Chop, and I believe Dynamic Punch. I think it can learn maybe learn Close Combat or something as well. But you're generally going to be seeing Cross Chops coming from this thing. And we're going to be able to Dragon Breath it all the way down without throwing an extra Body Slam because we didn't want them to get any extra turns and any extra energy because we knew we had to just Dragon Breath them down entirely. Dusclops is going to come in and take us out, which is completely fine because our Golbat has just enough health left to wing attack down and give us the win. So a pretty close match, but still worked out in our favour. And like we said, if you got the shields, you can Dragon Breath your way through a lot of things once a Vigoroth specifically is out of the way. Okay, a mirror match lead, and we're going to swap out to Sealeo. I might actually recommend in general, if you're getting a mirror match lead, that you swap to Zweilous instead of Sealeo, because then in the end game, if you end up with Sealeo lined up against the Golbat, it's a slightly better matchup than when Zweilous is lined up against it. So because Sealeo's your harder counter, you don't say swap to that. But we're going to say swap Sealeo in this match in particular. We're going to get the Aurora Beam off against the Vigoroth that comes in. We're going to get to the Body Slam, get a shield, which is nice, but this Vigoroth has 2 Body Slams worth of energy now, so it is going to be able to spam some moves at us pretty quickly here. We're going to shield up the second Body Slam, I believe, yeah, because we don't want to just let Golbat get too low in case Zweilous isn't quite enough to power through whatever's in the back. Against this team, we don't want it to have to handle both Golbat and the last Pokemon. We'll throw a Shadow Ball at their Golbat, absolutely obliterate it. Swap to Zweilous, and we think this is a Shadow Ball that we've caught, which it is. That's absolutely huge to catch a Shadow Ball on Zweilous because it's resisted. And then what have they got in the back? It's a Dragonair. So this is looking reasonably okay because we're going to be able to get a move off, force the last shield, and then Golbat should be able to get to a Poison Fang, which should be enough to finish off Dragonair because it's reasonably squishy. It's going to be a little bit close. They're going to throw, we can shield up. They are getting pretty close to the next Body Slam / Aqua Tail though, and they catch. They catch on bloody Vigoroth, and they catch the Poison Fang, and it's going to take them out. We're not going to have the energy, and they can now finish us off, and it's going to be their game. So GG to them. Very nice catch on the Vigoroth. I'd be more salty about it, but we did catch a Shadow Ball on Zweilous, so really it's a tit-for-tat catch, and that Shadow Ball catch could have bought us the game, but then them catching the Poison Fang saved the game for them. So just well played across the board. I'm going to jump straight into the next matchup. And this is exactly the lead you want to see with this team. Vigoroth on the lead, so you're double resisting them counters. We're going to keep going straight for the Poison Fangs, soften them up, rack up the wing attack damage, make the next Poison Fang hit harder. We'll take them out the second Poison Fang. So a pretty solid position, and definitely going to be clearing the way for our 2 Pokemon in the back. So after this Body Slam comes through, they swap into Dragonair, and we make the choice to Poison Fang this thing to weaken it, and then swap into our Zweilous and Dragon Breath it down, because a debuffed Dragonair takes immense damage from Dragon Breath. So we can take this Body Slam, no worries, it's not going to take us out. Dragon Breath the rest of the way down. We've got switch advantage, we haven't given up shield advantage. We've got a Body Slam to throw at the Vigoroth to get it a little bit lower. We do get a shield out of them, which is nice, but this Vigoroth does get quite a bit of energy out of us here, and I think we're going to choose to shield this up, yeah, because we want the Vigoroth a little bit lower. We want it to throw more energy and get a little bit lower so that Sealeo can powder snow it down. We're not going to give up the second shield. at all. And then in the back is another dragon, it's the Hakamo, and this might seem scary because Hakamo's part fighting, so it's going to be able to hit us for super effective damage with that Brick Break, but also Brick Break is an absolutely god-awful move. It's not going to be able to take us out. It's going to hit with reasonable damage for sure, but it's not going to take us out. And we're going to get to this Aurora Beam because we're able to bait with a Body Slam, so we don't have to worry about whether or not we can survive the Brick Break. We wipe them out, and then we can Powder Snow down the Vigoroth. And honestly, baiting with that Body Slam gave us the win, because if we'd have even just taken a Dragon Claw or a not that hard-hitting Brick Break, the counters from the Vigoroth would have then taken us out before we could Powder Snow it all the way down. So it was a clutch shield bait, and it was necessary. And like I often say, I don't like shield baiting if I don't have to, but also that can make it predictable. If the opponent knows you have to shield bait, then they can comfortably no shield and screw you over. But that's an advanced tactic talk for another video and other matches. In this game, we completely misjudge that Nidorina has access to Thunderbolt and hits Sealeo like an absolute bloody truck, which is really infuriating. And then we end up shielding up 2 Poison Fangs after that, so we're getting absolutely run around in circles. If they swap into Nidorina and you're going to swap out into either Sealeo or Zweilous, you might as well swap into Zweilous, not Sealeo, because then you ain't going to worry about the Thunderbolt. So now we're down shield advantage. They swap back into Vigoroth so we can at least get Golbat lined back up against this thing. But honestly, we're pretty much on the back foot in this situation right now, and the only hope we've got is that this Poison Fang is going to debuff the Vigoroth enough that we can at least Dragon Breath the rest of it down fast enough, and then Zweilous has a substantial advantage against whatever's in the back. But that's not looking too good. Most things in this cup will lose at a shield disadvantage, and there are a few matchups that are positive regardless of shield advantage, but most times these things come down to whether or not you're on even shields or you've got more shields to win matchups. So even though Golbat into Zweilous isn't the worst thing for us, because we've got 0 shields, they're going to be able to get to a second Poison Fang and take us out. We could have thrown a Dark Pulse there and actually taken them out. We catch on Sealeo. This is absolutely clutch. Is this going to buy us the match? It might. Can we get rid of the Nidorina? We can. Can we Dragon Breath down the Golbat? We can. We just take the win with a clutch catch recovering that game for us. But honestly, Nidorina swaps in. Swap in Zweilous, don't swap in Sealeo like I did. I didn't realise it had a Thunderbolt, and I suffered for it and barely scraped through that game as a result. Alright, another match, another baited out Vigoroth from the back that Sealeo's going to hang out with, and again, the usual method, hit them with an Aurora Beam, see if we can get to a Body Slam after and force shield advantage, and then see what the rest of the game is looking like. Now, the Vigoroth chooses to throw when we get to the Body Slam. That's fine, you let it go. You let them use up their energy. It means that Golbat's got a better opportunity to get more of an energy advantage because it was a Dusclops that they had on the lead. So having Shadow Balls ready to go is very, very nice for Golbat. And this team is going to have a bit of a solid answer for Zweilous in the back as well. So they actually bring it in here because they know we're loaded on Shadow Ball energy. So they bring in Piloswine, which is very, very bad for Zweilous. And actually, we want Zweilous lined up against the Dusclops. So they're actually playing into our hands a little bit here, but they do shield up one Shadow Ball and then let the other one through, so it gets them very, very low. And then we're going to just choose to bring in Zweilous and try and Dragon Breath them down before they get to a second Avalanche. They're going to swap out, preserve a bit of health on the Piloswine, and here comes the Dusclops. Now, we can let one Ice Punch go through, it won't take us out. They shield up a Dark Pulse, which is a little bit unlucky for us, but we're just going to keep plugging away here, try and make it to this last Dark Pulse. We are going to have to shield this up, and this is going to be a race to whether or not we can get to this Dark Pulse before they get to another Ice Punch, and they are going to beat us there, and that's going to seal this match for them. There's nothing we can do at this point. The Golbat's too low. We've got used up his energy. So if we'd have baited with Body Slam, maybe. If we'd have baited the Piloswine with a Poison Fang, then maybe, because then the Shadow Ball might have like one-shot him after that or anything like that. But a little bit unfortunate, but it is going to be a GG. Alright, this matchup, Hakamo on the lead, which is pretty positive for Golbat, just because the wing attack's doing super effective. We're going to choose to shield up the Dragon Claw just because it would do a reasonable chunk of damage. And then they swap out into Vigoroth, so we don't have to pull it out. The Vigoroth comes to us, and we don't mind this because we've got a buttload of energy saved up on Golbat that we've not thrown at the Hakamo yet. And we know that Zweilous can hit Hakamo, you know, they do super effective damage to each other, which is fine. Sealeo's going to do super effective damage to Hakamo, so we're not super concerned about the Hakamo, but the Vigoroth is a big threat to us. So we're able to double Poison Fang it, we're able to fast move it down, and we've got a Poison Fang ready to throw whatever follows it back in, which it turns out is the Hakamo coming back in. And then we're going to be able to bring in Zweilous, Dragon Breath it down since it's debuffed, see what they've got in the back, and they swap out blindly into Gothorita, which is double resisted by Zweilous, so just surrender there and it's a GG. I honestly think the opponent being a bit desperate to line up Gothorita to our Golbat really backfired on them there, because they weren't in a terrible position, and if they'd have kept Vigoroth further back, they could have put tons of work in with it, but instead ended up getting rid of their only answer to Zweilous in Vigoroth, and then we were just able to just lock them off in the end game. If they'd have just stayed in that intro matchup with the Hackamo, put a bit more work in on the Golbat, they really might have been able to win that matchup, especially if they'd have then been able to wipe out Zweilous using Vigoroth specifically. They'd have been a much, much closer matchup. This game, bloody Magneton, awful for our team to deal with. Pretty much everything on the team actually struggles with Magneton because it's resisting the Dragon Breath, resisting the Ice moves, resisting the Flying moves from Golbat, the Poison, the Normal. Like, the only move on our team that isn't resisted by Magneton is Shadow Ball on Golbat and Dark Pulse on Zweilous. So very, very tough position for us, and it's really going to knock us back enough to where there's really not much else we can do in this game. We see a Shadow Dragonair come in, and then they swap out, clear the defense debuff, bring in their own Golbat. They're going to be able to take us out here, even with just a Poison Fang, even though they do go for the Shadow Ball. And Zweilous is not going to be enough, especially because this Golbat can now debuff us with Poison Fang, so the Dragon Breath and the Dragonair are going to hit extra hard, and they're definitely going to be able to take us out. So this is going to be a GG, and that's going to leave us with another 3 out of 5 set, which is nothing to sniff at. We are at around the 2500 ELO rating currently. I think I'm going to try and make a push for climbing pretty soon, go up towards Legend Rank. I tend to take it easy for the first half of the season and then have a bit of a push towards Legend Rank where everyone's still being try-hard to get to Legend, but it's not quite as sweaty as when it's the top 100 players in the world that are reaching that 3000 ELO rating, you know? So let me know how you guys are getting on. What do you think about the team? Are you enjoying Evolution Cup? Are you playing Great League, Ultra League, or Master League this week? Is there anything in particular you want to see me try out and check out? Bear in mind, Great League is in here for 2 weeks currently, and then next week we get the Weather Cup, which is going to take place in the Ultra League. But if you've enjoyed the video, be sure to hit the like button, helps me out massively. Subscribe if you're new, and as always, I will catch all of you absolute legends next time.